Hello, my name is Kurt Skelton, and today I'm going to show you how to make your CGI look like it was filmed with something like an iPhone. Proud to say I made this video. It was the top post of the Blender subreddit for the day, and more importantly, I tricked MCR fans for like the 15th time. You're going to need 3 programs. One, you're going to need a 3D program to actually, make your scene and animate it and model and whatever. I'll be using Blender, but the same principles will carry over if you're using something like Modo or Maya or Houdini, 3ds Max, whatever. I'll be using Blender. 2, you're gonna need Nuke. Don't worry, there's a 100% free version of it on the Foundry website. I'll put the link in the description. It's the non-commercial version. And if you're thinking like, I don't need to learn Nuke, After Effects will work just fine. Let me know how that goes out for you. Good luck. 3, you're gonna need some kind of like basic editing program like DaVinci or Final Cut because we're gonna need to do some denoising. And if you're wondering like, why don't we just use Nuke if it's so great? It's too great. The denoising in Nuke is actually too accurate. We need a shitty program that adds like really bad denoising artifacts. So the shittier the program, the better. I will be using Adobe Premiere. Now, when it comes to the Blender part of the video, I'm just gonna be giving an overview and like your settings and things like that. I'm not gonna recreate my entire project from scratch. There are already so many amazing Blender tutorials out there, but there aren't that many Nuke tutorials. There's some great ones. I love Hugo's Desk. I love Compositing Academy, but I'm gonna hold your hand through the Nuke part just a little bit because that's a little bit more specific and that's a big chunk of our video. Now, let's get Blender open. The first thing you wanna do before you start animating is set your frame rate to 30 frames per second. That is the iPhone look. But don't worry, if you messed up like me and you animated the entire thing in 24 frames per second, it's not too late. Don't worry. Set it to 30 and then go to your time stretching and you're gonna change this number. What you're gonna do is you're gonna open up a calculator. You're gonna type in 100. You're going to divide it by the frame rate you animated in. I did 24. And then you're gonna times that by your new frame rate. You're gonna get 125. And then you're gonna type that in right here. And if you're thinking, oh, Blender has a built-in calculator, I can just do it in here. Don't. Let me show you why. If we divide that by 24, we don't get a decimal, we get 4. And then when I times that by 30, we have the wrong number. I love the built-in Blender calculator, but you need a real calculator. Go get a calculator watch. Next, if your scene takes place during the day, bright outside, and you're going for that iPhone look, I'm not even kidding when I say this, turn off motion blur. Or at the very least, put it to like 0.1. But really, I looked at so many reference videos when I was making this, and iPhones have like no motion blur. It is insane. I'll take pictures while driving on the highway or like videos, and I'll pause it, and it'll be like the wheel of a car going 80 miles an hour, and you pause it, and it's like no motion blur whatsoever. But if you're like me, and you're still like a little insecure, like no motion blur, you can see you can pause the video anytime, see all the details of your work. I set mine to 0.1. And don't get me wrong, I got comments. I'm not trying to get mad. This was the best post on Blender. It was the nicest comment section I've ever had on any subreddit. Usually Reddit tells me to go fuck myself, but this was the nicest comment section. But there were people going like, oh my God, this is amazing. How'd you do this? Also, your motion blur is too low. It's like, obviously I know what I'm doing. You got to trust me on this one. You need your motion blur as low as possible. People said it looks too sharp, but people also said it looks so real. And you got to trust me. There are flaws in my project. I'll talk about that, but I don't think this is one of them. Motion blur as low as you're willing to go. In your camera settings, you are going to set if you're going for the iPhone look, I have an iPhone 11 and the focal length for that is 3.7 and your sensor size should be 5.6. If you're like me, I'm acting like I know that. I just found that out not too long ago. I've always just been like, oh, what's iPhone focal length? 27, I typed it in. I never knew your sensor size played a role. Maybe I'm dumb, but you're watching my tutorial. So I set mine to 5.6 and 3.7, but you're gonna animate the entire video like that at that focal length. You're gonna animate it at 3.7, but when it comes time to render, you are actually going to make this wider. I did like 3 and see how we can see just a little bit more information. And that's because of lens flares and what are they called? Glooms or blooms or something? Because look at this lens flare I have right here. The light source is right here and the lens flare is extending that. It's going pretty far. What do you think is going to happen to the lens flare when this light source dips beneath the frame of the camera? When it's out of view of the camera, what do you think is going to happen to this lens flare? It's still there. Maybe it's just me. I thought that would disappear. Maybe it's my little compositor brain because we as compositors, when we edit this video, we can only add lens flares to the light sources that we can see. So if we were compositing this, we would have our light here, we would add our lens flare, but the moment the light disappears out of it, our lens flare would disappear. And it's pretty noticeable, especially when it enters the frame. Your lens flare should enter the frame before your light. Do you see that? If we were compositing this and we could only add the lens for the light we see, it looked like, whoa, lens flare. And it doesn't sound like it's distracting, but it's pretty noticeable when you do it. So we are gonna make our frame wider. We're gonna add our lens flares in the compositing, and then we're gonna kind of zoom in. We're gonna scale up the video. Therefore, in your output settings, turn up your resolution. The render that everyone saw that did really well I only did 110 and I scaled it up 123%. No, I scaled it up 23%. So really, I should have done 123. I'm getting a little ahead of myself. Just turn up your resolution as much as you can. All right. What else? Output settings. Let's look at these. Like I said, I did 1,000 samples, but I did double the noise threshold. If you don't have a beefy Dell 3660 Precision Tower or a Dell 5690 #sponsored, and you're rocking like the Mac with no graphics card, ignore these. This is just gloating. You can do like 128 samples. You can do 64 samples. I don't know. Sample size isn't that big of a deal. I did such a high one because I put like little glass rocks on my road, and I didn't want them to look like fireflies. So I did really high samples, so the little glass shimmers would be consistent, and they still weren't. If you look at my video, there's little tiny white dots that just appear on the road. I kind of regret it. Maybe it does do something subliminally. No one noticed them. I forget they're there. Anyway, I did 1,000 samples. Also, because I have these little fine details like this grass casting shadows on the wall, I did need a high sample rate for that because that did look a little wonky, especially with something like especially when we're doing like such low motion blur. It might be more noticeable. Maybe I'm overreacting. You know, still put your heart into the render. Still make it look as good as possible, but the compositing will help. The compositing is gonna be the biggest step. Someone asked, like, do I even have to bother about like the detail if you're gonna destroy it in the composite? And I don't want to say destroy, but like if you're gonna do so much compositing, yes, you still need detail for the composite to destroy it. But a big thing I keep thinking about that really did an inspiration on this is this game called like Unrecord. It's this crazy cool game that looks so realistic, and everyone thinks like you need a beefy computer and it's so detailed, things like that. It's really the compositing. I can't explain it, but the game, if you look at, you pause it, it's like polygons. You can see the polygons in the view, but then the composite, the blurring, the light metering, all these things make it feel real. I don't know what I'm trying to say. Put the detail into your video, try your hardest, but if your hardest isn't good enough, you'll be fine. But don't go into this thinking, I don't need detail. The compositing will cover all this. I got a little ahead of myself. That's just kind of like a little rant. F-stop. Set your f-stop in the camera view. Go to your f-stop. I did 1.8. You really want a deep depth of field. I caught myself going like, should I do 1? So it's like kind of cinematic. No, iPhones are not cinematic. They're ugly. You want the ugly look. You want a deep depth of field. And you're thinking like, I spit. You'll think like, oh, you barely even noticed that. All these little details add up. You know how some people go like, oh, add chromatic aberration to your video. And they go, oh, it should be like a tiny little detail, but they crank it to 9 and you notice the little detail. You don't want to notice these details. These tiny little details, just doing a little bit of them add up to one great big detail, but making them noticeable, you're going to mess yourself up. So I don't know what I'm getting at, but I'm trying to give you all the information I possibly fucking can. I promise. I care about other artists. F-stop 1.8. I also use the camera Shakify add-on. I love you, Ian Hubert. I subscribe to your Patreon. You'll see a lot of your assets in this video. The important thing about the camera Shakify video, the add-on, is it just adds camera shake. Like, don't get me wrong. Without it, I still have like some pretty cool camera shake. Like, it's still moving and I animate it as if someone was like, oh, sticking their arm out a window. I also put a little, I don't have it on render view, but I have a little shadow of an arm. I want to show you how I did that. I took like this little thing and I said, only look at the shadow. And then in the render view, you can see just like a little arm shadow. Again, these little details add up. No one ever noticed like, oh, the people on the bridge, no one even took the time to see the graffiti that says like, not for real. My buddy Jason did this. He's the one on the right. I'm the one on the left. Wake up is a reference to something else. I'm going to talk more about the detail, but like these little things add up. You don't want I don't know, maybe you do want someone to comment like, oh my God, you even got an arm shadow. But me personally, I like when their subconscious realizes it, but they don't comment. They don't know. They go, why does this look so real? And they don't know why. That's how you know you did a good job. To me, maybe I'm ranting a little bit. Here's also a big thing I learned making this. The little lacks of details also add up. So many times I would put like a car on the road and then I would just stop short of giving it a driver. I'm like, I don't want to put somebody in the car. That'll take me a whole 5 minutes. I'm just going to make the windows dark. And these little lacks of details add up over time and it's going to add to an insufficient video. So it took me like 5 minutes. I was like, let me just put someone in the car. Look I got Ian Hubert driving my Crown Victoria. And those little things are so much better because now I'm like, oh shoot, I can actually lower the transparency of the glass and now it feels so much more real. Little things like that. Like I said before, I was like, people were told me, also get a lot of input. Even if you're trying to keep this video a secret, like I kind of was, I didn't show my VFX friends, but my personal friends is like, watch this video. What do you think I should add? And people will be like, oh, like you put like some stuff on the wall, like put some graffiti. And I was like, I don't want to put graffiti. That'll take like 5 minutes. And then my buddy Jason was like, let me just make the graffiti. Let me just put it on there. So like I said before, he drew this beautiful, this beautiful drawing of us. He drew some other ones I just couldn't squeeze into the video, but he's the best artist ever. I love him. I love you, Jason. And I put that on the wall. Instantly the coolest thing ever. Instantly adds so much detail. Same with this overpass. He's like, you need something that goes like above the bridge. And I had these pylons. Where are they? I had these pylons. And he's like, no, you need something else. You need like an overpass. And I was like, there's no good overpass model on Sketchfab. And he's like, how long would it take you to make one? I was like, probably like 5 minutes. He's like, just fucking make it. I made it. Coolest part of the video. And then I was like, oh, let me put some people walking up here, street lights. I made this little fence. More Teslas. By the way, perfect background car, Teslas. Oh, there could be 15 white Teslas on the road. You will not notice them. It is the perfect like NPC car. But I also put people up here. I just like, there's a Tesla in the background. There's a Tesla ahead of the video. I passed by a Tesla. A great car. Not a great car, but you know what I mean? Little details add up. And like, I'm not proud of the mountains. I just had trouble. I've never learned how to make mountains. What else? Let me show you the trees again, because there's also something really cool that I'm proud of with those. I was driving and I noticed, I think it was only like one time, I saw that the pylons don't have trees underneath them. And I was like, is that like a legal thing? Like, is that for like safety? So if these wires break, it won't start like a forest fire? Maybe that was just a coincidence. Maybe that's an actual legal thing, but I thought it was a cool detail. So I removed the trees under the pylon. And this is all geometry nodes, by the way. There's a G-scatter add-on I could use, but I never learned how. Oh, and the trees are from the Botaniq Add-On. And before I tell you the price, let me tell you, it was so worth it. Like I said before, so many times I would be like, oh, there'd be a tree here. I'm like, I don't really want to get a tree. I just won't put a tree there. And my video would suffer because of that. And all it took was just like, oh, let me get this add-on. It's $160, but you have all these trees, you have all this grass, you have like pots, all these things. And then now I'm just like, let's put a tree in there. And it instantly looks 1,000 times better. These little details add up. Anyway, now when you actually get time to render and you go to your output settings, we are going to use an open EXR multi-layer, and then we are going to go to your view layer. I have a couple other ones. I never used any of these. Here's an important thing. We don't use it in this video. I baked in the depth of field into my video. And usually I don't do that. When I do an effect, I just give myself the Z pass. And then when I take it to Nuke, I can adjust the depth of field however I want later on in the video. And it's not baked into my footage. But because a part of the video in this one is looking out through a glass object, the Z pass kind of has trouble with that. I'm sure there's a fix, maybe like render layer or something. I don't know how to do it. I didn't bother. So I just baked in the bokeh here. And that's also why my samples were so high. You kind of need a lot of samples to have good bokeh in Blender. Mist, I didn't end up even using it. Emission, I didn't end up using it. Environment, this is the only one you need checked on. Okay, you need combined and environment. And then you are going to hit render. Time for Nuke. This is probably your first time opening Nuke. It's the most popular program when you're doing like big movie level compositing. But I know that like a lot of people use After Effects. A lot of young people, a lot of gross ass Gen Zers use After Effects. And I came from After Effects. I don't know why I shit on it so much. The first thing you will notice is your viewer up here, your properties, and your node graph. And you will navigate all of these with your middle mouse button. This is how you can move around and stuff like that. And then if you ever get lost, if you're like, oh shit, where's my viewer? Click the middle mouse button. Or you can hit F. That's important to know. But let's bring our footage in here. We are going to make sure your mouse is over the node graph, and you're going to hit tab. You're going to type in read and hit enter. Now, if you hit tab and this happened, it's because your mouse was over the viewer. You have to have your mouse over the node graph and hit tab. Type in read and pull up your footage. Here's mine, 420 frames. I swear to God, it's a coincidence. Make sure sequences is selected and hit open. Now, this is our viewer node. This is how we will see all of everything we do, because we're going to have like all these effects on it. And sometimes we only want to see this section of the video. We only want to see like, oh, what this effect looks like right now. Now you can connect it just by dragging and dropping like that. But a good trick to learn is to have your whatever you want to view selected and then hit 1. And we still don't see anything because like I said before, we did an open EXR multi-layer. If you did TIFF sequence, if you did PNGs, you'll see something, but we did open, what's it called? Open EXR multi-layer. So we need to add one more thing. Because right now we have so many, we only have 2, but we have multiple layers and passes. And Nuke's like, I don't know which one you want to look at, dude. And I'm like, dude, let me tell you. So with your footage, with your thing selected, you're going to hit tab and you're going to type in shuffle. We're going to want the shuffle node. And then we are going to change it from RGBA to view layer combined. That's what it's called if you use Blender. It's probably going to be something else if you use like Modo or Houdini. I don't fucking care. And now we see something pretty cool. And also, before we get too far into this, your number over here is probably set to 10. All this is how many properties you want over here at a time. So if I was like, I want to look at the viewer node, I want to look at the shuffle node, I want to look at the read node, it stacks them up like this, and I get overwhelmed very easy. I always have mine to like 2 or 3, and then you can clear them all by hitting that. It doesn't delete them, it just clears them from your view. Let's first save our project. Control S, save it wherever. I'm just gonna put on the desktop. I'm gonna type in, I don't know, I call this whole project like Trans Am like 1,000 times. Trans Am save, and it should say it over here in the top left. One time, like when I first started using Nuke, I was having trouble saving, and I don't know how, but I was. And so make sure it says, if your name changed over here in the top left, you save the project. That might just be that might just be user error. Let's set up our project settings really fast. With your mouse over the node graph, you're gonna hit S. If you do it over the viewer, you're gonna get a different thing. And you keep wondering, like, why do you have to have your mouse over certain things? You only affect the panel that your mouse is over when you use shortcuts. Like maybe you've already tried to play your video by now and you're hitting space, and all it's doing is making one of those things full screen. That's what space does. If you want to maneuver through your video, like play it forwards and back, you put your mouse over the viewer and you can hit J to go backwards, K to stop, L to go forward. If you hit anything above your node graph, if you hit K over your node graph, you're gonna get a copy node. It sounds kind of confusing, and I still make this mistake. I'll be watching a video and I'll be like, pause, oh shit, and I'll put a copy node in my thing. It happens, but that's a good force of habit. If this is your first time learning Nuke, wherever your mouse is what it's going to affect. So we're gonna put our mouse over the node graph. What the fuck did I just open? Hit S. Oops. Okay, I'm gonna reopen up my properties panel. Properties, there we go, I fucked up. Okay, now with S selected, we are going to set our frame range. It already automatically did it. Mine's 420, blaze it. Frames per second, 30. And now our full size format, this is gonna be our output. I don't wanna get too far advanced. I don't wanna scare you, but I'm just gonna say we need to set our our aspect ratio of our final project. So we're going to go to full size format. We're gonna hit new, and we're gonna go, we need a width of 1080 and then a height of 1920. And then we gotta give it a name. Now, if you're like me and you're already like stressing out, like, oh shit, what am I gonna call this? It is not gonna stay on here for future projects. If you make a new project one day, this will not be here. You can call this whatever you want. I'm gonna name it after the greatest guitarist of all time. I'm gonna call it Ray Toro, and now our file project is called Ray Toro. If I create a new project, Ray Toro will be gone, okay? Now we saved our project. We have our everything. We have our footage in here. One last kind of thing, and this isn't a quirk of Nuke, like it's a workaround. This is honestly will be the greatest pro of Nuke. It is so non-destructive, almost to a fault. Like in After Effects, if you want to destroy something, all you gotta do is make it tiny and then make it big again. It will ruin the resolution. Nuke is the most non-destructive thing, almost to a fault. Like right now, it still says our aspect ratio, our file size is 1188 by 2112. Because that's the original file size of this video. If we brought in another video, it's gonna show that original aspect ratio. We're gonna do this at the very end. Don't do this, but where the very end, remind me, we're gonna add a reformat node, and it's gonna set output type to format. That's the project settings, and then it'll be Ray Toro. It'll be the 1080 by 1920. That's at the very end though. But you're gonna see like certain things. We're gonna rotate the video, and you're gonna be like, oh, are we gonna lose information because part of the video is outside the frame? And then we're gonna rotate it back, and we will still have that information. Hopefully I'm not scaring you. I just love Nuke so much. I am sponsored. I don't know if I had to disclose that. I do get this program for free, but you're using the free program, you're fine too. I love you, Foundry. The first effect we're gonna add is called light metering. This is when you have your phone and you aim it out the window and it goes, oh shit, it's really bright. And it adjusts the exposure, goes doo, 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 and it goes darker. And then you aim it at a dark corner of the room and it goes, oh shit, it's dark, doo, 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 and it adjusts. That's the effect we're gonna do. And don't worry, we're not gonna keyframe it. We're not gonna go frame by frame and do this ourselves. We are also not gonna keep working like this, because look at all this blank room. Look at how dead it is over here. I'm wasting space. Let me show you how to modulize your workspace for your workflow. We're not going to use the curve editor. I'm going to show you about that later, but we can exit out of that. We can exit out of that. Fuck it. We can exit out of here. Fuck it. We can close the entire pane. Background renders close, scene graph close. We are going to split horizontal. This is if you're working with vertical video. If you're not, you can leave it how it was. My bad. We are going to drag properties. We actually want it over here. Oh, what the hell is this? Close pane, drag this over, click here, Windows, node graph. Look at how much nicer this is. Now I can actually see my video. Sorry, that was bothering me. So what we're going to do is we are going to add in a tool called the curve tool. Let me show you something real fast. If you add the curve tool without a node selected, it's going to put this little thing off center. Not the biggest thing in the world, but just to get you in the habit of this, if you select the last thing you're working on and then you add the curve tool, now it's adjusted for our video. Just a little thing, throwing that out there. And what this is our ROI, I don't know, like region of importance, I'm guessing. And I'm hitting control and clicking to move this uniformly. And what this is it's what we're gonna scan. And if we make it tiny, it's only gonna gather the information of how bright the frame is in the middle. It's only gonna adjust for the middle of the frame. So if you have something super bright just out of the view, it's not gonna adjust, which is kind of how phones work. Maybe a little older phones, but I feel like modern smartphones actually have a better idea of grasping what we're trying to just focus for. Like if we were tracking something and it was in the middle of the frame for a long time, it just happened to go over here, I feel like the camera would know we want to actually adjust exposure for this. So I'm actually going to animate mine to follow my car just a little bit. But here's the thing. If I hit go, you don't have to do this. If I hit go and I hit OK, it is going to scan my video, just this area, and tell me the average luminance on a frame by frame basis of this part of the video. And if you don't have to do this. If I click over here and I hit split vertical and I bring up the curve editor, you'll see that it gave us this information. This is the thing that I was just talking about. This is like, oh shoot, it's really bright at the beginning. Your red's really high, your blues aren't that high. And you get a little darker, you get brighter, you get darker. It's telling us that information. But notice how it's telling us the reds, the greens, and the blues. Store that information. That's a surprise tool that'll help us later. But we also want a delay to our video. We want it not to adjust the frame on that frame. We want it to adjust the frame like 4 frames later, because your phone has a little bit of a delay. When you aim it out the window, it is blown out for a second and then it adjusts. So we could use the curve tool and then go, oh, actually a little bit of a delay, and scooch it over. I ran that test so many times. I would make little changes, then hit go, and then hit go, and it kind of got annoying. So what I'm actually going to do is I'm actually going to split over here into an alternate timeline, and I'm going to add something called the time offset node. And I'm going to set it to 4 frames. And if you look here, bink, we just went 4 frames in the past. And that is what I want the curve tool to read. I don't want it to read the sacred timeline, Earth 616 over here. I want it to read the frame 4 frames in the past. So now if we view this, we're looking 4 frames in the past, and we should adjust for that. Why is it set to 1? I think I like you on 3. We should adjust for that. Next, here's another thing. This is why I had to restart the entire video. I skipped this step. It is gonna scan, it's gonna tell us the information of the reds, the greens, and the blues. And we don't wanna know the reds, the greens. We wanna know the brightness of all of them combined. I don't want to adjust exposure for how blue or red or something is. And you can see that if you have your mouse over your video and you hit R, this is the red of your video. The black represents no red, white represents a lot of red. Like if we skip to the end and we hit B for blue, the sky is blue. If we hit G for green, the trees are a little greener. Yeah, like this is blue. Look how, and we switch to green. Look how green those trees are. And this also works for A for alpha, but we don't have an alpha channel just yet. And then you hit the last key you hit to exit out. So if I hit R, I hit R again, RGB, B to go back to normal. So what we want to do, because right now this is going to scan the reds, the greens, and the blues. We don't want that. We need to transfer our reds, our greens, and our blues to a different color space. We're going to hit, with our time offset node selector, we're going to hit tab, and we're going to type in color space. There you are, color space. Right now we're in linear, and that's measuring R's, G's, and B's. And we're gonna go to output HSL, hue, saturation, luminance. It's gonna look a little funny because it's still kind of read them as R, G's, and B's. But if we hit R for hue, this is the hue of our video. If we hit G for now saturation, this is how saturated our video is. If we hit L for lightness, boom, that's what we want to measure. This is the actual luminance of our video. Pretty freaking cool, right? Now we hit B again, we see that ugly view. Now this step isn't the most important, but I kind of like to do it just because it kind of helps me when I look over to the viewer, I can kind of see what I'm working with. If we hit tab and we add a shuffle node just like we had before, it is saying like, oh yeah, your hue connects to hue, your saturation connects to saturation, and it makes this picture. But if our blue is our luminance and we plug it into these ones and we say, actually, I just want to see luminance. Now we don't have to hit we don't have to hit B to see our luminance. Oh, by the way, if we scooch this over, this is what I'm affecting, R, G, and B. It's right up here. But I kind of had to have that squished for now. But that's a good way to see what channel you're looking at. Now when we do our curve tool, now we're scanning for luminance. We're not scanning for how red something is. We're scanning for how fucking bright it is, okay? So now we can adjust our curve tool. Let's hit exit. I just want to look at the curve tool. And I'm going to animate mine. You could just hit go and you're set. It'll just scan the middle of your thing. I kind of like to use this time to show how much I hate computers. This is me letting out my anger about how much I hate computers and how stupid they are. So I will hit right click, set key, right click, set key, right click, set key, right click, set key. And I'm going to be like, you dumb phone, you're probably not going to adjust for exposure over here. You're probably going to adjust it for this dashboard. This is what I did for my video. And then you hit L to play. Mine does that glitch. That's just a render problem because I did something stupid. Just ignore that. Yours won't do that, hopefully. And then I go, you're probably still going to be looking at the dashboard. You're probably still going to be looking at the dashboard. You'll probably be looking at the pillar by now. Okay, now you'll be looking at the car. car. You know what I mean? I get to make fun of the computer this way. I go, oh, you're probably looking at the car. Probably going to look at the wall right around here. Maybe you'll be looking at the car now. Maybe you're looking at that car now. Okay, maybe you're looking at this and I can make it tinier. Go a little forward. Maybe the computer's getting a little smarter. It knows to adjust for this Trans Am. Maybe it's looking at this car now. Okay, now it's looking at this car. This car. Me. That's me in the car. Everyone thought it was Gerard Way. Don't get me wrong. That's the highest compliment ever. Maybe the computer got a little smarter. Maybe it's scanning for right here. It's still adjusting for the car. And then I'll give it to the dumb iPhone. Maybe it's pretty good at tracking this car and adjusting exposure for it now. But now our curve tool adjusts like this. Now we're going to adjust our exposure for what's in this ROI. And now we can hit go. And it's going to say 4 to 4 plus whatever your max time is. That's because we have a delay of 4. We're going to hit okay. Now it's going to do that. You're doing pretty good. There's one more little complicated step ahead of us, but I'm going to walk you through it, I promise. Okay, so this is our alternate timeline, and it has the information that we need, but we need to bring it back to our timeline. So if we select this node and add an exposure node, if we hit 1 to view it, we are in the sacred timeline. Oops, this is connected to that. Don't connect to that. Just this one. Now we need to get the information from this node into this node, okay? And this is information from how bright it was 4 frames ago, and I want to make that adjustment now. So we're gonna set this to lights. What did I do? I don't know what I just did. Okay, delete the exposure node. I'm gonna add that in again. Is it because I set it to light too early? Lights. I must have hit the wrong button. My bad. This properties panel will go in order of whatever's at the bottom is whatever you clicked on last. So I'm going to hit curve tool and then I'm going to hit exposure. Curve tool's at the bottom. Now, in our intensity data under curve tool, this is our information. And because we use that shuffle node, all these have the exact same information. And what we're going to do is we are going to give this information to our exposure node. And if you're used to After Effects, you know the pick wicket tool, it kind of works like an arm. If this is your layer and you want information from that layer, it reaches out and grabs it. This one's a little backwards. If this layer needs, if this information needs to, I shouldn't hit the mic. If the information over here needs to get this, it kind of drops it off. That made more sense in my head. But what we're gonna do is we're gonna hold down Control, click, and we're gonna drag it over here. Now you'll see this green line appear saying that these are linked. This is parented. This information is getting its information from right here. I know what you're thinking. I'm gonna get a little ahead of myself. I'm gonna drag this information to the other ones. Don't do that because we're gonna make changes to this one. So we're actually gonna link these, the green and the blue, to this one. Control click drag, control click drag. Okay, now if we right click into here and we hit edit expression, this is our X. In a formula, this is just kind of saying like, oh, replace this number with whatever right here. See how this says 0.065621? It says that right here. This line of text right here is just saying replace this line of text with this number. So what we're gonna do is we are going to write a little bit of line of code. Are you ready for this? I'm gonna walk you through it, I promise. So what we have, because right now this is doing the opposite of our effect. It's saying like, oh, it's a little dark. Let's make it a little darker. It's a little bright. Let's make it a little brighter. In a way, kind of, not really, but hear me out. We are going to, first, we need to define our goal. If this is where we're at, what do we need our goal to be? Let's say we're aiming for, I did like 0.5, I think, or maybe 0.4 or something. Let's just do 0.5. We're aiming for 0.5 brightness on a scale of dark to light, the middle, all right? We are going to subtract by that number. So now we have defined in this, and we can put parentheses around this. What we have right here is the change that we need to happen, okay? But here's the thing. The light exposure doesn't work 1-to-1. If we need to go up 0.2 and we tell the exposure to go up 0.2, it's not 1-to-1. It's kind of logarithmic. It works on a different kind of scale. It's not linear. So we actually need to times it by an exponent of 3. And then we are going to put this, again, there's a lot of parentheses, and it's going to tell you if you have the wrong amount of parentheses, if you have this little arrow right here. We're going to put these in a parentheses, and then we actually want this negative. We want this to be negative. And this will work. Right now, look at it, it's saying 0.06. That's dark. We want it to be 0.5. So it's saying go up 0.86. Not bad, okay? But could be better. We are also going to times it by, and this number will be how much we change. It'll say like, dude, I'm sorry if this is getting a little complex. This is, I barely have a grasp of it in my head, but this is how much we're gonna make the change by. If we go, oh, it's a little dark, do we wanna say like, crank up the brightness? Or do we wanna say like, oh, you can make it a little brighter? This is like the factor in which we are changing it by. I did like 20, I times it by 20, which sounds like a lot, but it's not really that much. But here's the thing. It's kind of going a little too bright. It's going to 0.17. I kind of want to put a clamp on these. I just want to say like, make these changes, but don't go beyond. I'm going to give it some boundaries right now. I'm going to put these in another set of parentheses. And at the very beginning, I'm going to type in clamp. because that's what we're going to do. We're going to clamp it. We're going to say you cannot go below this number or above this number. And then I'm looking at my notes. We need another set of parentheses. We're going to put this one in a set of parentheses, and then we're going to hit comma. Our lowest number we can go to, I'm going to say like -15, comma, the highest number we can go to, 15. Put that in parentheses and see how before it was like saying like 19 or something. Now it's saying 15. This is our code. And I want you to change this as much as you feel like it's necessary. Know that this number is your goal. My goal is 0.5 brightness. This is how much of a drastic change it's going to make. How fast, not how fast, but how much brightness we're going to add. And these are your boundaries. This is how low this number will go, and this is how high this number will go. This is mine. It works for my footage. Adjust it to your footage. That's the fun part about visual effects. Now, if we hit OK, boom, we're cooking. You did it. Congratulations. Let's look at it. If we hit 1 here, this is our footage without this thing. Ignore that glitch. I'm so sorry. It's a whole thing. You'll see what it is in a second. Now, see how it's all the same thing? Now, if we click on this exposure, it is going to adjust for this Trans Am. It's very minute. You're not going to notice it right away, but like when it passes this car, it's going to adjust. It's going to go through. It got a little darker right there. See, these little changes are what really tied this video together. You don't want to draw too much attention to this. Like I said, you could just have the box just at the very middle, but I feel like that would draw too much attention to the light metering when really you want all these. It's like chromatic aberration. Some people just like put so much chromatic aberration on their video, and people are like, it looks fake because we can see the detail you're trying to add. This detail should live in the background. I only got like 2 comments noticing it, and I was like, nice, right? That was the hardest part of this entire video, okay? That's why it took me 15 fucking takes, all right? So now we have the exposure thing done. This is the key of this video. Now we're gonna do some flares. And there are some like gizmos and add-ons. Add-ons are like, gizmos are like add-ons in Nuke that do some really good flares, but none of them really have that iPhone look. iPhones, for some reason, always have like a flare, like from like grease on your phone. It always goes at a diagonal angle, top left to bottom right. Maybe that's because like how people use their greasy phones to wipe away at the lens. They wipe at that angle. That's a theory, but that's the angle we're gonna add our stuff at. So we're kind of gonna go to another alternate timeline. And what we're doing right now, just setting you up for success, we're doing in Nuke what's called like the B pipe or the B pipeline. You kind of work downwards. And when we start adding layers, we haven't really added any layers yet. We're gonna do that in a second. You hit M, or you can type in a tab and type in merge, and you have this merge node. And what you do is you bring it in here, and it will say B. You think it'd be like, oh, your first effect should be called A, and your second layer would be called B, because that's like alphabetical order. But I'm getting a little ahead of myself. But know that when we're adding things, we're typically gonna, this is an exception, we're typically gonna put them on the right side of the video. And then when we subtract things later, we're gonna put them on the right side. Got a little ahead of myself, but you're gonna learn about merge nodes right now. You ready? We're gonna hit tab, and we're gonna add actually another exposure node. And I'm gonna go to the brightest part of my video, which is probably like right around here. And here's what we're gonna do. We're gonna connect this to here. Actually, I like to keep myself organized. If you hit control, it'll put these yellow dots in the middle of things, and you can just grab that. And I can actually grab from here. It's the exact same thing. It just kind of, I like the right angles, okay? So we're gonna grab from here, and what we're gonna do is we are going to make it a little darker. If we hit 1 to view this, we are going to, I like to set mine to lights. We're gonna make it a little darker in here. We only wanna add lens flares to like the brightest parts of our video. We don't wanna add lens flares to just like parts that are kind of bright. We wanna literally lower the exposure so we only see like the brightest of the bright. Like this is really bright. The sun is hitting this at just the perfect angle. We're gonna make it really dark, and then we're gonna key out to the dark stuff by hitting tab and type in keyer with a key node. And now we're going to increase this up to remove the black. Now here's the thing, you're not going to see any changes. And if you're from After Effects, this is going to be kind of weird. It was very confusing for me, embarrassingly, but in the long run, it is the most helpful thing that Nuke does. If you come from After Effects, you kind of have this idea that alpha should affect your entire video. If something doesn't have an alpha channel, you shouldn't see it. Nuke does that differently. Alpha kind of operates on a different dimension than your other colors. So remember how we were hitting R and G and B? If you hit A now it's got something. If we disable this, it's all white because we had an entire alpha layer. But if we look at our keyer and we adjust this, we can see that we are affecting our alpha layer. And we're gonna key out the dark stuff. Let's just get that little reflection from that car in this pillar. Now, if we hit A again, our video still looks the entire same. We need to apply this alpha. Not really apply, but we need to kind of say like, oh, that alpha channel, apply it to the R's, the G's, and the B's. And we do that by hitting tab. And, oh, see, I fucked up right there. You see how I hit tab and my mouse was over here and I just fucked something up. I don't even know what I did. Control Z. What did I just do? I hit matte. RGB. Okay, sorry. That was a little embarrassing. We're going to hit tab with our mouse over the node graph, and we're going to add a pre-molt node. So now, look at when we adjust our keyer, it adjusts everything because our pre-molt node. And if we disable our pre-molt node, you can see, and if we hit A, we see our alpha, and then we hit D, A, and now it's alpha applied. Hopefully I'm not getting too confusing. Now what we're looking at is the brightest parts of our video that we are going to change. We are going to affect. And we affect these with a blur node. You can hit tab and type in blur, or you can hit B. There's a lot of shortcuts in Nuke for things that you use a lot, like merge, blur, color, grade, all these things. So if we connect our blur over here, I'm going to put mine a little sideways. We're going to kind of build off. We're going to do a couple parallel timelines right now. If we view our blur and we turn it up, look at that. It's blurring our stuff. Pretty freaking cool, dude. But here's the thing. I don't want just one generic blur over the entire thing like this. I kind of want levels of blur. Maybe I want like a giant blur across the entire frame. Maybe just a little blur around the area. And to do that, because if we put another blur right here and we blur this, it's just going to keep blurring the exact same thing. And that's not what we want. We want multiple levels of blur. So what we're going to do is we're going to hit control and we're going to do this. And then we're going to put another blur node over here. Connect that, control, keep it all organized. And so what we have right here, if we hit 1, we view this, set it to like 5, I don't know. And then we click over here, view this, set it to like 50, I don't know. We have this blur and we have this blur. We want to stack these. Now comes in the merge node. Hit M, and this is where that B pipeline kind of comes in. Granted, this is probably the worst way to introduce you to it, but it's going to make you tougher, all right? B is going to go in here, and A is going to go in here. And now if we view this, we have both. We have this blur, we have this blur, we have both of them together. Pretty freaking cool. And now we can just keep stacking these. And the way you stack them is you are going to put another blur right here, B into here, A into here, another blur like this. You just kind of do this. Look how fun this is. You connect A to right here. Let's put maybe there's like a little blur like that. We have 3 different levels of blur working in parallel when you add them all up together. Oh, shoot. Set these to plus, by the way. Right now, this is over is the default one. It kind of looks at your video, looks at your alpha channel, and puts the video over the other video, depending on the alpha channel. But we're gonna do plus. I'm like, just add all these things together, dude. It's a fucking lens flare. Make it bright as shit. These should all be set to plus. You don't notice the difference now, you'll notice it later. Okay, so look at this. We have this blur mixed with this blur and this blur and this and this. That's pretty freaking cool. We have a generic blur over the entire video, but I want those diagonal blurs. I want those really cool lens flares that iPhones, or like most things have, where it kind of goes diagonal at an angle. And if you look at this blur right here, we can only adjust it like across the entire video, and that's kind of a problem. Now, however, if we hit this 2 and we split it to width and height, and we use the scroll wheel, we can adjust it on the width and the height independently. Pretty cool. But you notice how there's no angle thing. We have to kind of trick Nuke a little bit here to get the angle that we want. So what we're going to do, getting a little confusing over here, my bad. Oh shit, these are all intertwined. Gross. Oh shit. What we're going to do is we're going to hit we're going to select this node, and we're going to hit T transform, and don't grab from here. Get your hands off that one. We're going to put a transform node right here. We're going to view it, and we're going to rotate it. Let's just say 45 degrees. Just for now, we're going to say 45 degrees. And then, here's the cool thing. Now we're going to add another blur node right here. Keep it organized. This is the fun part. This is why I really like Nuke, because like you can look at this and be like, I see what you're doing here. If you keep it all organized and you have all the nodes organized, it's pretty cool. After Effects, I look at all the layers, and they're all called like matte or like solid yellow solid 1, and it's all ugly. I really like Nuke for this reason. Now we have rotated our footage. Now we're going to blur it along just the width like this. Let's set it to like 500 just so we really see it. And then we're going to take this transform node. You don't have to do this yet, just yet. We're going to copy, we're going to paste it, put it right here, and then we're going to go -45. And then look at, now it's diagonal. But if you want to keep adjusting this and then adjusting this, it's going to get a little annoying, and you already know how to key things. So let's just key this, or not key this. We can parent this. If we Control C and Control V this one, put this right here, double click this one, so it's lined up. This one's here, this one's here. We can take the information from this one, Control click, drag. Now they're linked. Right click, edit expression, go to the very beginning, hit negative, and look it. Now if we hit view right here, let's give it something to view. Let's plug this in right here. If we view right here, and then we view right here, and we rotate, It's like exactly, look at 66, negative 66. It's always adjusting for each other. Just a cool little trick just to kind of keep things easy. You don't want to have to like adjust the transform and then forget you adjusted the transform later, and then it's a nightmare. I'm spitting all over this mic, dude. My mouth is dry. I really apologize if I'm going too complex. I do have like a lot of stuff I'm getting through, but that's what the pause and play button's for, bitch. Control, click, look at this. And then now if we hit A, connect to this one, we view this. Oh, we have to put it back on top of our original footage. Remember, this is an alternate timeline. If we hit M and we put our B right here, and then we put our A right here, and we view it, it is now on top of our video. Should this be set to plus as well? Sure, why not? Now it's on top of our video. But here's another thing. We did make this part brighter. We made it darker, and then we did all the stuff. We got to kind of bring it back up to our original brightness level. So same thing, Control C, Control V, double click here. No, sorry, double click here, 3, 3, 2, 2. We are going to do the exact same thing. We are going to take the information from here, put it right here, take the information, Control click, drag. Yes, Control click, drag, edit expression, same exact thing, minus, okay, it's really bright. Hear me out, don't worry, don't regret doing that. Stay with me. So now we have the exact same thing. Our exposure gets bright, finds out the brightest part, does the effect, and then goes back to the level we just had it at. Now, if you want to adjust the opacity of all these things, all these merge nodes have a mix right here. This is kind of your opacity. And so we can actually tone down the lens flares right here, and that's where I suggest doing it. You'll notice a lot of things like blur has its own mix node, transform, does that have its own mix node? I wouldn't be surprised, but it doesn't. So merge right here, this is where you're gonna adjust the opacity of your lens flares. And now I can further explain that B pipeline, by the way. So why you put things, your previous effect in B, kind of thing is B for background and A is for adding. You're adding the thing to the side. And you put B over here because let's say I was like, oh, I wanna view this. I don't wanna look at the lens flares right now. If you hit D to disable, it ignores this A input and it goes straight to the B, straight to the B.
It's M to the B, it's M to the B, bang.
And it goes straight to the B and it ignores it. And this is a good way to work because I'm like, oh, what does it look like without lens flares? I can quickly turn off and on this effect over here. Versus if we had it the other way and I had A over here and B in here, and I was like, I don't want to look at the lens flares. Why the fuck am I only looking at lens flares? That's why we do the B pipeline. And then you'll also notice another little node over here. We're going to talk about this later. It's your mask. And that's why you kind of think of things like you're adding things go on the left. And when you're removing things with the mask, they go on the right. And we will do that, I think, next. So let's play with our lens flares. I don't remember my original settings, but I remember I changed them so many times, and you really just have to look at reference. There's a great video I'll put up on the screen now by Composite Academy, who I met at a fun foundry party. He's like the nicest dude ever. I love you, Alex. And he made a great video on like all these lens flare references, and iPhone's in there. So I'm going to show you that one. But if I'm just being ignorant and not looking at that, I'm just going to kind of like eyeball it. Maybe it's a width of 500 and maybe like 15. Maybe I can click on transform. Maybe I can adjust this a little bit. Don't copy these settings. Look at reference. I just fucking said that. Now, if I want to add more blurs, we are going to delete this. We're going to hit M, put it right there. And look at how it automatically selects the B because it knows the B pipeline. And let's put another blur. Control C, Control V, connect it over here. A goes in here. It's copied. Let's make it, actually, this is like 1500. And then you're like 50, I don't know. And then you can also go in here and this opacity will adjust the opacity from this A right here. And it goes, oh, actually, I don't want this one so bright. It's pretty fun. And same thing with the B pipeline. If I was like, I don't want to look at these other lens flares over here, I hit D and I'm just looking at over here. I'm ignoring everything over here that the A has plugged into. Pretty cool. That is how that works. I did some level of this. I really fine-tuned it. I looked at reference. There is no exact number. And I know mine's off. Every time I watch it, I go, I wish I played with that longer. I don't even know what's off about it, but something pisses me off on it. And that's how I got like these kind of like semi-God rays. I had God rays in mine coming down from over here. Maybe I did that with the keyer node. Maybe yeah, something like that. This adjusts how much light, like just affects what light gets a flare. This is the cutoff. This is the bouncer. So mine was something like that. Now, also one thing that no one really noticed it, which is good. Maybe actually I think one person noticed it. I also adjusted for white balance in my video. And maybe there's a way to do it how I did with the curve tool. Maybe there's some kind of formula because the curve tool measures your R's, your G's, and your B's. And maybe there's a formula that can auto adjust the white balance, how we did it with the exposure. But honestly, if I hit G to add in a grade node, put it right here, and I double click on grade node, and I go to gain is the one you want to look at, hit the color wheel. These will adjust. Oh, why am I not viewing it? Hit 1 to view that. There we go. This will adjust your colors. And you also have some pretty cool sliders over here that are literally dedicated for tint and temperature. So if you right click, set key, right click, set key, right click, set key, you don't have to do you do this one? I don't know, just in case. Right click, set key. And then maybe you can just like watch your video. This is what I did. I just watched it and I go, oh, it's kind of bright. It's kind of warm. I'll turn down the temperature. I'll make it a little cooler. And then I'll watch it. Like, it's still a little warm. I'll make it a little there. Maybe I'm like, oh, maybe it's too green. Play. Oh, now it's definitely too cold. this is how I did mine. And I hate that there is a part of my video it's coming up, like right after this car passes the Chevy. It's too warm. And every time I watch it, I go, fuck, I wish I didn't do that. So take more time with this, adjust your grade node. This will do that auto white balancing that most smartphones and iPhones and shit like that do. The next effect, and I think our last effect, it's one of our last effects. The rest of this is kind of minute. You really got the two big things. You got the exposure adjustment and you got the flares. It's already looking pretty good, but we have a couple more things. Oh, we have a big step at the end I forgot to talk about that I didn't want to say in the beginning because I think people are going to go, if I said this last step at the beginning of the video, you're going to go, that's the entire trick. You're going to leave, do the effect, it's gonna look like shit, and then you're gonna get mad at me. There's one big step at the end of this that you need to do. Next up though, I noticed when looking at iPhone footage is that the sky is always a beautiful blue. That's a bad example. That's a beautiful blue sky. The camera app lies to you, by the way. I'm gonna talk more about this later, but the camera app is lying to you. It's not the raw footage. It is a completely distorted version of what your iPhone camera is actually seeing. Apple knows that. They go, oh, if we put some software in here to make our phones, to make you look prettier, like they'll put like skin smoothing programs into the camera, they go, you'll feel better about owning an iPhone and you'll buy more iPhones, right? So their sky isn't how the sky that you looks like on your iPhone photos isn't accurate. There's some kind of little software thing going in there to make sure the sky's always blue, your skin's always clear, and there's no noise, things like that. So if we hit tab and we're gonna add in another shuffle node, and we are going to go way up here and we're gonna connect this to our original footage, control click to keep this all organized. We're gonna drag this shuffle node way down here. And if we hit view to view the shuffle node, we are gonna set it to environment. And this is gonna reveal just your HDRI. However, we just need the alpha of it. If we hit A to look at the alpha, there is no alpha. Look right here. So what we're gonna do is we're gonna grab the alpha. We're gonna say the blue channel, because if we look at B for blue, that's pretty much, the sky's blue. This is pretty much a good alpha matte. So we plug blue, we plug blue into alpha. Now if we hit A for alpha, this is our alpha channel now. That's what the shuffle node does. It is the most useful tool in Nuke. Hit A again, so we just view the regular good old-fashioned RGB. And now what we're gonna do is we are going to add in something called a hue correct node. And we're gonna plug it into our footage and we are going to view it. And what this hue correct node does is if we go to something like blue, and we go adjust it, like we play with it. See how like things are, blue is getting shifted around right now. Blue's going, oh, am I going more green? Am I going a little hue to the right? Am I going more purple? That's what the hue correct node does. And maybe there's a better way that we're gonna adjust our sky temperature, but this worked for me. So what, why did I delete that? We take the hue correct node and we are going to adjust our sky. So if we hit Control Shift and we select this, we now have the information right here of the average red, green, and blue of our sky. And also in the hue correct node, this yellow line represents, why my ear just start ringing? This yellow line represents this thing, or this, what we have selected. If we put it right here, you can see it's down here. Put it over here, you can see it's over here. So we Control Shift select our sky. This is where our sky falls in the level of like hue. And we go to blue and we can drag this little thing over and we can make it more blue. Oh, that's not what I wanted to do. That's too much blue. Let's go to like green. I don't fucking know, dude. I just played with this. I really don't remember my exact things. Oh, you're probably worried like, but it's affecting my ground. I forgot to say this part. Unless you're really smart, you picked up, I talked about this earlier. What we're gonna do is our mask from the hue correct node, it's this little thing over here, grab. We're gonna grab it from the shuffle node. It's what this is gonna do, it's gonna grab from the alpha channel of whatever you're grabbing from. So this mask is gonna grab the alpha channel of this shuffle node, and we gave it the alpha of just the sky. So bam, look at this. Now when we fuck around and find out, it's only adjusting the sky. Pretty fucking cool, right? And you can do this for other things. Maybe if you like, oh, I had emission textures in my Blender file, and then you render with emission, you can adjust the emission later. It's almost like a crypto matte, but I never learned how to use crypto matte. So we go to blue, we can play with the blue over here. What is it affecting? We can adjust the red of our sky. Maybe it's a little less red. Maybe add some more blue. I did this and I don't want to show you what mine looked like because I really, like my line was all over the place. I literally just fucked with this for like an hour, okay? And I'm probably doing it terrible right now. But if we hit like luminescence, maybe it was a darker sky. Yeah, it looks pretty good. That's not bad. Lower the luminescence, lower the red, lower the green, maybe leave blue where it is. Maybe give it a, maybe give a little blue. I don't know. It's a pretty blue sky. And if we hit D to disable, we can see what it was at before. Here's another thing though, is that when the iPhone's doing this, it doesn't have a fucking matte of the sky. It doesn't know when you take a video, oh, here's the exact, this pixel is sky, but this pixel to the right is not sky. So we can blur this a little bit. If we hit 1 to view the shuffle node, and then we hit B to add a blur, channels all, perfect. We can crank this up, and it's kind of like, it's just kind of cheating, because now if we view it, it's kind of affecting just like the general sky. And I really feel like this is how an iPhone would do it. If we hit D to disable, or so let's disable this blur, we can see that it doesn't have like a perfect matte of the sky. It's somewhat blurred. It kind of looks like like also we're doing something like tone mapping or something. So I just cranked this up and it kind of just gives that look. I don't know. I feel like that's just an iPhone look. Am I psycho? And if you hate this red thing, I don't know if I said it before, control right click to get rid of it. You now have like kind of like just a more pretty sky. I feel like that's a big step. I forgot to say this. I didn't think about this till now, but like, I feel like that's a big step in the iPhone look. Damn, I did not realize that till right now. Yeah, that looks like Blender. That looks like iPhone. I was even gonna add this effect until I realized right now, like that plays a pretty big crucial part. And I really like the glow that the blur, by putting a blur on the shuffle node gives it. Damn, I like this. Damn, I think I'm good at this shit, you guys. Another one that I wasn't gonna add, but I was like, maybe if it helps somebody, hopefully this helps you. I used it in mine. It didn't really change that much. I looked up like, how do you make your CGI look like it was filmed with an iPhone? And man, I looked up forever. I've had this idea for like 2 years now. Ever since I got sponsored by Nuke, I wanted to do this. And I wanted my CGI to look like it was filmed with an iPhone. It was the Unrecord game and some TikTok my friend sent me that really inspired me. But I looked up so many things, I couldn't find anything. And then I tried looking up again like last week and I found a great Reddit thread. Some dumb answers, some good ones. Some guy asked like, how do I composite my CGI to look like it's something with like a phone? And some guy's like, take a picture of the CGI with your phone. Duh. What the fuck? That was on r/VFX. That was someone's idea. I think 2 people commented that. But one guy had some really great information. He said, blur your saturation and your hue. We're gonna do that. It's almost like kind of giving it a compression look, but not really. Let me just show you the look. We go to our hue correct. We're gonna hit tab and we're going to add another color space like we did before. Because we can't blur our hue saturation in the RGB. We got to do what we did before. Except this time, I think we go to HSV. There's a slight difference between HSL and HSV. I've done some research. I kind of get it, but I don't want to act like I know what I'm talking about. And really fast, hit Control C, Control V, and then with your color space 3, which is my last one, hit swap input. It should look the exact same. Because I think that's what it is. If I hit HSL and I put this one at HSL, sometimes it leaves behind like artifacts. Like this isn't lossless. Converting linear to HSL and then back, it was giving me weird problems. Or was it HSV? One of these gave me issues earlier, so play around with these. We're not even going to touch the L or the V, so I don't know why I did that sometimes. Anyway, let's just do HSV because I guess that's what I'm rocking with. If you have problems with yours, switch to HSL, but switch both of them. We're going to hit tab and we're going to add another blur node. And instead of channels, we're not changing all the channels. We're just going to blur the RGBs and specifically the R for hue. And then we're going to add another one. I can just hit B. And again, channels RGB, and we're just going to affect G for saturation. And now if we zoom on in something like, let's zoom in on my Crown Victoria right here, and we're blurring the red, which in this color space is hue. If we blur it a little bit, it kind of does some really weird effects. If we hit a R to look at the R channel, and then we blur it, you can see it's looking a little wonky. Actually, you don't have to hit R. That didn't do what I thought it would. So blurring, we are currently blurring the hue. It just adds a little bit of things. I didn't like this that much. I just did like, I think I did like 2 and it didn't do that much. If it does something for you, that's why I'm throwing this in here. And then if we click on this one, which are saturation, you're like blurring the saturation. It's just fucking with it. It's kind of like destroying the footage. And this isn't coming from like a place of like, we're trying to destroy the footage. If you look at how VHS cameras work, they didn't store RGs and Bs. They stored color separately, then they stored the luminance. So it's not weird to blur these things. It's not coming out of it from a place of just like, fuck up the footage. Like it's scientifically, there's some backing behind this. The last 2 things in Nuke, we are going to, like, these are like, I think I saved these for last because like it's the big part, I think. We're going to add in a grade node. You can hit tab, grade, or let's teach you another shortcut, G for grade. I don't know if I already said that one. This is kind of like, I don't know, it's a grade node. It's kind of like a grade node. We are going to up the black values, kind of crush the information a little bit. And then I think we lower the white values just a little bit, but I think we should add it here. Does that do anything? Don't do that. I accidentally deleted the grade node that was controlling our white balance. You should have 2 grade nodes. That one that's controlling your white balance, and underneath it, the one that we're making right now that's going to lower your dynamic range. I'm only going to have 1 grade node right there. You should have 2. But that's where you're going to put it. You're going to put a grade node right after this exposure, up the black just a little bit, crush them out a little bit, maybe lower the whites just a tad like that. And damn, we are really getting there. That's way too much. I adjust your opacity of your lens flares right here, like I said before. We are getting there. Maybe I have the threshold for, what's it called? Maybe I have the threshold for lens flares a little too low if my tires are giving me lens flares. Another thing, and I wasn't going to even talk about this before, but just in case you're having it, because I think this is just specific to my effect. My footage. Oh shit, look it, we're having problems. We're having problems. This is because we need to have an HSL. No, why are we having problems? It's got to be because of this. Yeah, I just blurred it a little bit too much. Yeah, dude, fuck this effect. This guy said it and it looked kind of good. Why, dude? Is it HSV? Is HSV actually the good one? I don't really care for this effect, honestly. I did it on mine so tiny, and I lowered the opacity so tiny, and then it kind of just gave me more problems. Like you barely even notice it. So honestly, don't fuck that one. Maybe it'll help you. Maybe it'll help you. I don't need it. Okay, back to my specific footage. I hated how yellowed this thing looked. It looks kind of fake. And I used the AGX color space in Blender, which is supposed to know that if something gets really bright, it loses saturation. That's like a scientific thing, right? I don't think AGX is breaking, and that's why, okay, here's the thing. This is really yellow, and it kind of looks fake, and I don't like that. I kind of want this part to lose saturation because it looks like it's really bright, but it's maintaining its saturation, which isn't accurate. So the way I fixed my footage, I'm gonna show you one more node. Again, this is specific to my footage, but it might help you, so I wanna throw it out there. Tab, color correct. And what I did is I went into the highlights, the really bright parts, and I lowered the saturation. That's what I did. And see how it kind of looks a little bit better. But if you are lowering your saturation and it's not affecting your stuff, you go like, but like, look at that, dude. That's how it kind of looks. It looks almost like a toy. It looks like Toy Story 1. It looks like early Pixar. If we lower the saturation right there, it looks a little better. And if your highlights aren't getting affected by this, you can adjust what is your highlights right here. So if we go to highlight, it's this thing right here. So if I was like, oh man, I want to scooch this over, and it's kind of saying all of this is highlights. This is like our keyer. This is deciding what is highlights and what's not. So I can adjust like, there's more highlights than you think. And then I go back here, and then I can adjust the saturation. That was specific for my footage though. Let's throw that in there just in case it might help you. I like helping people when I can. Looks pretty good, looks pretty good. Okay, we're at the last step in Nuke right now. Remember how we edited our video at 3.7 and then we zoomed out to render? We're gonna put it back to 3.7 right now. So go back to your Blender project, go to like frame 1, set it to 3.7, set it to the target focal length. What do you want it to look like? And render that out and then get that image. Then you're going to go into Nuke, you're going to hit tab, read, and you're going to import it. I called mine 3.7 millimeter ref. Okay, now what we're going to do is we're going to add a merge node, and we are going to put our read node over this one, and you'll see it kind of already is doing some kind of opacity thing. Don't know why. There's definitely a reason for it. I just don't know the reason. And then we are going to put on we're going to click on our last node, and we're going to add a transform node. And then we are going to adjust the scale until it lines up. I'm going to look at my Dell logo. Thank you, Dell computers. I'm going to adjust it till it lines up. Bam, right around there. It doesn't have to be perfect. Bam, now it lines up. And then I can delete this, and we still have that transform node. And then when we look at our video, like mine zooms in and zooms out because I was fucking with this earlier when I shouldn't have. But let's get to a fucking evidence. Look at, see how we have a lens, we have a light source leave the frame, but we still have the lens flare. Last thing, we're gonna hit tab, we're gonna hit reformat. And here's where Ray Toro comes back into play. Root format, 1080, 1920. It's gonna say that when you normally add a reformat node, the default is gonna be like, oh, your project settings, and ours are set to Ray Toro. Dude, you followed your very first Nuke tutorial. I'm proud of you. Let's get this footage out of here. Tab, write. We read the footage in here. Now we're gonna write it out of here. File, go to wherever you wanna put it. I'm just gonna put it on the fucking desktop. Right here, I'm just gonna call it comp, I don't know, .mov. Call it that, hit save. It'll adjust, it'll go, oh, you want an MOV file? Why don't you say so? Apple ProRes? Yeah, I guess, Apple ProRes. Frames per second, 30, perfect. Everything's already set. Render, it's only a minute, sure, why not just do it, I guess. Fuck. Now our next step, we are going to take this into Premiere. And I already said before why, but just in case you forgot, we need to add shitty noise and a shitty denoiser. The denoiser in Nuke is actually really good. And I want like little denoising artifacts that kind of make it, that are like really fast. Like Nuke's denoiser is heavy because it's like, it's gonna take some while and it's gonna do a really good job. I want it how a phone would do it. And a phone, because like I said before, your phone is lying to you. The camera app isn't directly tapping, is doing its, the camera app on your iPhone is like a middleman between you and the actual camera. If you download an app, if you pay for one, there's like one called like Pro Movie or something like that. It directly taps into your camera, and you'll notice the raw video file that you get from your iPhone is drastically different than the one it gives you. One, there is noise. When you use any camera, there's noise. When you use that professional camera app, your iPhone video has noise on it. And then if you record that exact same video like I did with the camera app, it has its own denoiser on there, and it's doing some tone mapping and shit like that. And it's also compressing the video file. When you record with the Pro Movie app, you'll get like gigabyte size videos. But iPhone goes like, oh, no one really cares about quality. Let's just compress it so it's a smaller file size and I have a happy returning customer, right? So that's what's happening. It is compressing your video. Someone's like, are you compressing the video? And I don't want it to sound like I'm insecure with my visual effects and I'm compressing the video, making it look worse to hide my flaws. It is a scientific reason why we're doing it. Your iPhone compresses the video. Open up Premiere. I know DaVinci's free. You can use DaVinci. Let's bring in our footage. Import media. It was on my desktop. I simply called it comp. Open it up, drag it into your timeline. And what we're going to do is we are going to add effects. We're going to add noise. Maybe this isn't that important, but I'm going to add just a little. I'm just going to add like 2%. What the fuck did I just click? We're going to add like 2% of noise. If we zoom in, let's zoom in on somewhere dark in the video. If we look, damn, it's a little bright in my room. If we look right here and we turn up the noise, it's like that. So let's do, I don't know. You really don't want that much. Like I said before, little details add up. You don't have to have people notice the denoiser. Add like 2, I guess. And then we're going to nest this. We're going to right click, nest, I don't know, call it nest. And then we're going to add a denoiser, VR denoise. It works for 360 videos, but I think it's like their only denoiser also. I don't see any other denoiser except for sound. Anyway, we're adding our denoiser and it's way too smooth. It's too good. We need like 0.03. What does that look like? Yeah, that's pretty good. Yeah, it's kind of smoothing all the stuff out. Maybe that's too much. It's kind of getting rid of too much of my detail. 0.02. Let's just do 0.02. So we add a little bit of noise. We added a denoise. Perfect, dude. I'm very happy with this. Now it's time for the compression. We are going to go to export. We're going to wait because I fucking hate Adobe. And then we're going to go to location. I'm just going to put on my desktop. I'm just going to call it comp 2. And then we are going to do format H.264. Video, we're going to go to more. We're going to scroll down. It's different for every program. VBR 2 pass. I asked specifically the IT guy at my work and I was like, how does compression work? And I watched some videos. And he's like, you're going to want VBR 2 pass and you're going to lower that bit rate. I love you, Brian. We're going to set I did 20. I one time did one at 7 bit rate and it was too crunchy. And then I did 20 and I still think it was too crunchy. If I were to go back in time, I would have done 25. You play with this and you get the look you want. I'm gonna do, I said if I could go back in time, I'd do 25, but I'm still gonna do 20. Fuck that, dude. I'll set my VBR 2 pass, target bit rate 20. Hit export. Thank you so much for watching the video. I love you.